When it comes to local real estate, the company of this morning's guest is a miracle. Who is he? You'll meet him coming up next on Carolina People. Good morning. Welcome to Carolina People. This morning we're at 1550 Oak Street, the Myrtle Beach branch of South Carolina Bank and Trust. We're focused on local real estate trends, and we're visiting with the president of the CANA Corporation, Randy Wallace. Good morning, Randy.
Good morning, Greg.
Thanks so much for coming in early on a Thursday morning.
Well, thank you for having me.
Absolutely.
I don't get up early for everybody, but I got up for you.
I like it. Very nice. Well, particularly wearing a WF there on your, is that for Wallace Furniture or Foundation?
Wake Forest University.
Wake Forest. I love it. Yeah. You're a Demon Deacon.
I'm a diehard Demon Deacon fan.
Is that right? Do you get up to Winston-Salem much? Or?
Not too often, but I try to get up at least one football game, one basketball game every year.
Right.
A few visits.
Yeah. I'm sure they're contacting you on a regular basis. Come visit more, Randy, and do a couple more things. That's right.
They do like us to come up, all of us alumni to come up, but I love going up there. It's a great place.
Oh, yeah. Are you originally from the area, Randy?
I'm from Marion originally.
Oh, good.
Marion, South Carolina.
Absolutely. Do you still have family up there?
I have some family. I have an aunt who lives there and,
right.
and some distant relatives.
Yes. And you've been in the Myrtle Beach area a good while.
I moved here after college, after finishing at Wake Forest, and spent a few months in Marion, and then came down to the beach in 1977.
Is that right? A little more than 30 years now. Not to date you there, Randy.
Yeah. And started in real estate right back in 1977.
Right out of the gate.
Right out of the gate.
Had you thought about that growing up, that you'd get into real estate?
No idea whatsoever.
Yeah.
None whatsoever. Studied English and religion in college and just ended up in real estate, just through some contacts.
Yeah, what was it about the real estate profession 31 years ago that would have tickled your fancy?
Well, it wasn't so much the real estate profession as my father was a cotton merchant for years and years in Marion, and Thompson Wallace Cotton Company in Marion, South Carolina. And they had offices all over, really all over the country. But and I tried to work with my father for a few months and decided I didn't like the cotton business. So then I had a friend of my father's who was doing some real estate development here at the beach, and he asked me to come help him out some, and I came down in 1977 and took a one-man. He was a one-man show, and then we had a two-man show, and learned from him, a gentleman named Joe Parks, and worked with him for a couple of years, and then started my own business after that.
I think I saw that you set up your first company at age 24.
Yeah, at 24, I decided to do it on my own, and so we started. I started Lightest Corporation.
Right.
Had my mother come in, and she was my part-time secretary for free.
Oh yeah.
I couldn't afford to pay her, so she came in and worked half a day every now and then.
She came in from Marion.
She came in. Well, she was living here at the time, so she'd come in and help me and get things started, and worked for about a year or two by myself, and then brought in a partner, and we started growing. And anyway, it was a really exciting time back in the late 70s and early 80s, and real estate at Myrtle Beach was a really exciting time.
Oh yeah. What sticks out in your mind is really over that course, the early years of having exploded. Obviously, in the last 10 years and 15 years, we've seen a lot of explosion in the heart of Myrtle and up and down. But in the late 70s, early 80s, was there something that viewers who may not have been in the area at that time would take for granted as just been around a long time?
Well, it was really, again, like I say, it was an exciting time. We were growing, but it was a little slower growth, and people were just discovering that they could actually buy property at the beach and not just come vacation for a few days.
Right.
And we were building some condominiums and townhomes close to the beach at the time in Myrtle Beach, and it was really a time of discovery and exploration, a lot of creativity, and it was a time then also when the stack of shacks were discovered. We used to call them the stack of shacks.
Right.
The prefab condominiums on the beach, places like a place at the beach, units that are like at Ocean Forest, a place at the beach, and some on Shore Drive, and that was the big discovery in the late 70s.
Sure.
And the prefab units, because you could put them up quickly, and they were small and affordable.
Right.
And we were selling condominiums on the beachfront for $59,900.
Is that right,
and
Randy?
2-bedroom, 2-bath condominiums on the oceanfront for $59,900, and people were buying them like hotcakes.
Left and right, yeah.
So it was an interesting time, and like I say, started creating some new type properties.
Sure.
At the time, patio homes were big then, and as well as condominiums on the golf courses. That's when really condominiums on the golf courses got started.
In the late 70s, early 80s?
Late 70s and early 80s. It really started taking off just then.
Right, right.
With the growth of the golf course business.
Sure, sure.
But it changed after that, but that was the cycle in the 70s and 80s.
And cycles are common.
Cycles are common, and of course we're living in that now, and a lot of people don't realize that that's all we're going through is a business cycle. We had it in the 70s. It slowed down in the early 80s with high interest rates.
Right.
A lot of people remember that. Interest rates jumped up to 18% interest.
Oh, come on, Randy. Is that right?
And
in the early 80s?
In the early 80s. We would hustle to get someone closed on one of these oceanfront condominiums we sold. We'd get a closing package, and we would get in the car and drive, or get on a plane and fly up to like Greenville, South Carolina, to go to somebody's office, get them to sign the papers, race back, get to the courthouse before 5 o'clock to record their closing statement and their closing documents, so that their interest rate would be at 14% instead of 16% the next day. So it would.
Wow.
Rates were jumping high, but people were still buying.
Right.
Because they were good prices. They knew that that cycle of high interest rates wouldn't last, and it didn't. A couple of years later, everything came back down, and people refinanced.
Sure.
But that was a time that slowed down business a little bit, obviously, with that high interest rate.
Yeah.
The late 80s obviously slowed down with tax reform, and that slowed our business a good bit for several years, and the oversupply that resulted then. And what we're seeing right now is very similar to that. It's a time of oversupply because everybody was building and buying and trading and a few years ago, and now we're just absorbing that inventory.
So, having lived through a similar cycle back in the early to mid, even late 80s, and seeing an oversupply, and obviously that having cycled through, if you had a crystal ball kind of looking into the next, you've obviously looked backwards over the last couple of years, but looking forward a couple of years, do you have some feel as to, will it be a similar just recycling of that oversupply? Or?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, right now, so many people started buying. If you look at the trends, from 2002 to 2003, it jumped up. 2003 to 4 jumped up, astronomically.
Right.
And 4 to 5, the same thing. But then after 2005, it started coming back down. And so all that pent-up demand from the early 2000s, then we got into oversupply in like 2004, 5, and 6. And last year was, considerably down from the previous years. But like 2007 was down from 04, 5, and 6, but it was still up 20%, I think, from 2003.
Right.
Which was a good year.
Oh, yeah.
Except for the oversupply, we would be okay.
Right.
But we do have an oversupply, and that means it's great buying opportunities, because we've already been, the downturn actually started in like August of 05.
Of 05. Okay.
So we're already almost 3 years into a downturn.
Right.
And that means that now a lot of people are starting to feel the pain of carrying this property. So they're great buying opportunities.
Sure.
But we only have about another year left of it. And
so you see just about another year of...
another year left of that really down cycle, and then things are going to be moving up. So, I mean, I've really taken upon myself and my company to try to tell people, if they want to buy something at the beach, doesn't have to be from me.
Sure.
Doesn't have to be it can be anything, whether it's a condo, a lot, a home, a patio home, whatever it may be.
Sure.
if they're really serious about buying property at the beach, that they should be looking in 2008, because 2009, a lot of that inventory is going to start going away, and the opportunities go away. And when that happens, prices go up.
Yes.
Right now, it's a great time to buy property.
As you said, not just from CANA, but
Not
from
just-
any number of suppliers
anywhere.
in the area. There's a lot of great real estate companies and developers in the area that I'm sure do have a both national and local business that have a supply that it's good to take a look at and look seriously in 2008.
And not just, some people see the big headlines, like national builders might be advertising something $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 off for a particular home or whatever. But the small builders, small suppliers, smaller developments, resale homes, everything is held back their prices. They may not be offering a publicized $50,000 discount, for example, but their price may be held back, a good 10, 20, even 30% back from its high a couple of years ago. So they really need to kind of look between the lines and look for some good buys. But what a great buying opportunity for people coming to the beach.
And of course, just the basics of that for somebody. Obviously, you're speaking as a developer, and so you're aware of how much other developers or yourself are holding back or capable of doing. I mean, what should and I know this is a non-commercial show, but just for the interest of prospective buyers, what are some of the tips that they could use or utilize when talking to developers about ways for them to know what kind of bargains or opportunities there would be in the market? Are there some tips you'd give on the other side of the aisle to folks if they're talking to CANA or to any numbers of developers locally?
Well, the main thing is use a good realtor.
Right.
Whether you're using a realtor there on site or using your own designated buyer realtor or whoever, but use a good realtor who has a history with the market. Somebody that's been in the business, preferably a few years, and they've kind of seen where prices were lower than higher than lower, and they'll have an understanding of the true values of the property. And do some research yourself. Ask questions. Don't be afraid to ask questions. About the person's background. I'd want to be buying from a builder who's established, not a builder who just got in the business a year ago, and maybe is going to be out of the business a year from now. That type of thing. Now, there's some good new builders coming in the market. Don't get me wrong, but some of them have experience. But you want to make sure you're buying a quality product from a quality builder, a quality developer, somebody who's been around and is not just threw up a sign up and said, "Hey, I got property for sale."
Sure.
But it's a great opportunity. Just ask questions and do some research yourself.
We've had a great question-answer column. Tom Mazer, formerly with the Fortune Academy and now with Proformance Plus, and of course one of the spokesmen for the Coastal Carolinas Association of Realtors, has written a Myrtle Beach area real estate column for the Herald for the last three and a half years. A good question-answer, and I think he's driven home some of those points. In addition, recently we actually picked up a realtor, one who's been in the business just a short time, who's doing a bi-monthly piece, Eddie Paul, who's with Century 21 Broadhurst, I believe, and he highlighted a couple of weeks ago just that idea. We keep seeing national figures of foreclosures, and it sounds so, as you said earlier this morning, doom and gloom, but at the same time, obviously, it's just a scintilla, just a very small percentage of the actual mortgaged homes or lots or properties nationwide, but they're highlighting as if it's as the death knell of the industry.
Well, it affects us in that if somebody can't sell their home somewhere else, they can't move here as fast. But the amazing thing is that I mean, as sure as you and I are sitting here today, this morning, that there will be another 75 to 100,000 residents in Horry County in the next 10, 12 years.
You feel that way, strong about that, Randy.
That's all. You can't talk to nobody is going to say that Horry County is going to be shrinking in population.